Recording. Okay. Two Liz's. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for the 4% NIFA and NDED application workshop for the 2027 application cycle. I am Pam Skinner. I am the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Allocation Manager for NIFA. I will let Cassandra introduce herself.
I am Cassandra Stark, and I'm the Allocation Assistant Manager.
Kelly, do you want to introduce you?
Oh, sure. I'm Kelly Schultz. I'm the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Compliance Manager.
It's a
I
mouthful. It's a
know, I was
mouthful.
like, ooh, be out here forever.
Yes. Yes. Tammy.
Hi, I'm Tammy Bird. I'm the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Compliance Assistant Manager.
Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise Packard. I'm the Program Development and Administration Manager.
Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz. I work in program development and administration.
Okay. And Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Michelle Grimes, DED Housing Director.
Okay. And did you have any of your other staff members on today, Michelle?
Kylie is joining right now.
Yeah, Kylie is getting on. I gave her the link.
Okay. Um, do you want her to introduce herself, or she's connecting to audio, but
Sure. Kylie, you're up.
you're muted. Is she there?
Mm, I guess
I don't see her. Okay. I will start to share the screen so we can get started. Okay, again, this is the NIFA DED application workshop for the 4% for the 2027 application cycle. If I can get it to move. Okay. We always have our PowerPoints and presentations showing our mission, vision, and values here at NIFA as we hold them very close and make sure that we are following them. Today, the agenda, we will do the introductions, which we have done. We'll do some policy updates, submittal dates, we'll go over those. We'll go over a little bit of the letter of intent. Then we will show you where the application link is, all the stuff that you will need to apply for the next application cycle, helpful information, and some questions. And in the helpful information, Denise and her team will discuss Section 811. Okay, the volume cap, the official policy of NIFA, which we will have it posted on our website soon. We look at 30% of aggregate basis or what can be supported by permanent supportable debt for the bond cap. So instead of, I know the IRS, we had it reduce the 25% from the 50%, but we look at 30% or the permanent supportable debt. We will have Section 811 project rental assistance available for the 2027 application round. And we will let Denise talk about Section 811 in a little bit. The submittal dates for the 27 application 4% credits. The letter of intent is due to NIFA by close of business 5 p.m. Central on July 29th. That's next Wednesday. If you have any questions, make sure to let us know. In the QAP itself, it lets you know where to send the email with the letter of intent. You can always copy Cassandra and myself on the email, and we will let you know that we are in receipt of it. The full applications are due September 9th by 5 p.m. Central Time. After we've reviewed it, we will provide feedback probably October 20th time frame, 20th, 21st, to make sure you have ample time before the due date of November 5th to return any of those threshold deficiencies. We will be doing threshold deficiencies through our Engage work platform. So you will have your own workspace for the application where we will let you know what all deficiencies you have for threshold, and you will upload the documents there. The goal is to provide conditional allocations at the December board meeting. Right now, that board meeting looks like it's going to be December 11th. The letter of intent. They are due by email by 5 p.m., like I said, on Central on July 29th. When you're doing the letter of intent, please make sure to include the location, number of units. If you're requesting Nebraska Department of Economic Development funding, if so, are you requesting home, HTF, the amount that you're requesting? Section 811, we'd like to know if you are going to be looking at doing Section 811 and utilizing them in your development, and any other pertinent information that you think that we would need to know in regards to your application. We do understand that this is a letter of intent to apply, so that's just letting us know you're applying. Now, we understand that sometimes the number of units may differ when you look at the site a little bit more when you're working with your architect. We do know that, but we kind of like to have a general idea of what the project will be. We also like to know if you're who you're looking at having as the bond issuer, whether it's NYFA or another entity. We also want to know the amount of volume cap that you're requesting. And in that, we like to know if you're going for state credits or if you're going for the 4% only cycle. That just gives us a heads up of how many applications we can expect in those different application cycles. Here is the link to apply for the low-income housing tax credit program. It will take you right to where all the documents are on our website, and I will take you there now just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to make sure it comes onto this screen. Can you see my screen
Yes.
for the NYFA website? Perfect. Okay, so this is the apply website. This has all your pertinent information for your due dates again, and it has the link. So when you're here, just make sure if you're applying for state tax credits, you look at the one with the AHTC. If you're looking at the 4% only cycle, here's the information for that and the link to the application. I'm going to click on this real quick. I just want to make sure everyone understands that I'll close that box, that we do at times provide updates or anything that we deem important for any of the applicants to know in this box here. So make sure that you're reading every time you come to log in to update your application or work on your application. Make sure you read this over just in case there's an update from the NYFA staff that's pertinent to the application. Also, when you're on the website, I just want to point out a few areas. The forms and documents is where you'll want to make sure you're very familiar with. This has the whole QAP here, the Qualified Allocation Plan, and it has the 4% QAP portion and the 4% application. Make sure you have access to this because this has all of your pertinent information. I will say in the paper application, the link for the areas of high opportunity section the point section is wrong. It didn't get updated when we posted the link for the new areas of high opportunity. So you'll want to look at in reviewer at that question to make sure you have that location. So you can make sure you get the accurate points. This will have all of your exhibit example chapters and all of your individual forms, your exhibit 111, all of these fillable forms that will are required for exhibits. They're all linked right here along with your DED forms. Because we're here, I'm just going to go over a few of them right now. I'm going to open the development worksheets real quick if I can find where it went.
You gotta go to your downloads at the top.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Thank you. So I'll open this real quick. And I just want to point out for the 4%, I'm not sure how many have applied in the previous application cycle, but I want to make sure everyone understands that we do have a 4% only leverage sheet now on the Exhibit 111 where we would like you to list out all of your sources. This just gives us a better understanding. It populates the numbers that you put in here will let us know the percentage that you have, and then we have a clear idea of what you as the applicant is looking at utilizing for leverage and collaboration points.
Keep in mind, it has to be a commitment
Correct.
to receive the leverage points for it.
Yes. It must be a commitment. That's right. Thank you for making sure to point that out. And then all of these this helps you understand. Now, we only look at efficient housing measures for the 4% and state tax credits if there's a tie and if there's more than one application in a county. Make sure when you're using these, you're using whole numbers. That's really important because when we do the underwriting, we need whole numbers for square footage to make sure that we're getting the information from you. The rents should be whole numbers. We don't have decimal points on the Exhibit 111. One of the other things that it's jumping ahead, but I want to make sure to point out in the exhibit examples chapter, where'd it go? There it was. Here we go. Exhibit examples. We go down to, I want to point out Exhibit 209 for the HCCP. We did change this from the last QAP. I want to make sure everyone's aware of the changes to make sure that everyone doesn't inadvertently lose a point here. So this is the website where you can go and check to see if the individual at the property management company is HCCP certified. And what we would like is we'd like a screenshot of their profile from the HCCP website. This way we know it's current. A lot of times if you print a screen, it'll show the date that you've printed it, so we know that they are still current and have an active HCCP. Cassandra, was there anything else on the website I needed to show? Do you remember? Did I miss
No.
something?
You're good.
Okay. I will go back and if you guys have if you have questions on where things are, you can always let Cassandra and I know as well, or attend one of the office hours and we can go through this a little bit more in depth as well. Okay, so now we'll go over some information that we want to make sure everyone's keeping in mind when they are applying. Make sure that when you are uploading your exhibits, you have the exhibit number at the beginning, and we want you to limit it to 20 characters, no special characters. Make sure that each file that you're uploading for each different exhibit is a different file name. We don't want the same file name. We won't know which one you're wanting for which exhibit unless we go back, because we just download it all at once. We don't go through the application and download individually. I will want to make sure that you understand that when you uploaded your file name, that you name the document should be what we would want to have what we would want the file name to be. So it'd be Exhibit 209. You can label it design standards. You can give it the development's name, whatever, but just limit it to 20 characters. And if you want to abbreviate exhibit for EX, that's fine. Just we want to make sure that we have it all clear so we know which exhibit goes with which exhibit number. For the exhibits, please do not include cover pages. It just takes up more data, and so sometimes it can be a little trickier to just download it all at once, as that's how we like to just download the whole application together. All exhibits should be in PDF format unless it is Exhibit 18 or 111. Those are Excel files. Everything else should be in PDF. That's the most secure for you. So for secure for us, that's the way we would like them uploaded. No zip files. All of your documents for one exhibit should be one PDF. We shouldn't need to have multiple files for one exhibit. For general information here, for your 100 level exhibits, they can be found in the application on page 19. That's where it's going to list out all of the requirements for each different exhibit number and let you know what you need to make sure you are including with your exhibit. The other selection criteria, this is where your points will start to come in, start on page 29 of the QAP document itself. All fillable required exhibits, like I showed you on the NYFA website, can be found there along with your DED exhibits if you are planning to apply for DED funding as well. And I want to make sure everyone understands to make sure to review all of the requirements for each exhibit. During threshold review, we only let you know which threshold items are deficient to keep you from meeting threshold. If you don't meet threshold, you will not be considered for a conditional allocation and therefore will be thrown out for reviewing the scoring purposes. So make sure that you are reviewing each of the exhibits requirements and following what's needed to be done. So if you have something in other selection criteria that doesn't meet the exhibit requirements, you may not get those points if they don't meet the requirements. But we won't let you know that until after the applications have been scored and the conditional allocations have been approved by the board. We will always meet with applicants after the board meeting where conditional allocations are done, so you can know what part of the exhibits or what part of the applications that fell short or what needed improvement or what was missing or why you didn't get those points. I also want to make sure everyone understands that you do not alter any documents after, and this includes the third-party verifications that have been signed, third-party signed documents. Do not change any documents. If we are made aware of them, we cannot review them because they have been altered and we don't know what the document started or what it got signed as. Again, I can't stress enough about the requirements and using the exhibit templates and examples. It's really important to understand. We try to make sure you guys understand exactly what each exhibit should include or have. And that's why when I showed you the exhibit examples, I showed you what we would like for the HCCP now. That way you just guys, so you as the applicant don't lose any of those points for not meeting those requirements.
So sometimes the requirements aren't necessarily listed in the application. They're listed more in the template or example. So make sure you pay attention to both.
Yes, that's very important. The application portal, we use Reviewer. If there's issues, please contact Reviewer through the chat support and email Cassandra and myself. That way we know if there's an issue, and if we know that there's an issue that maybe Reviewer's not going to be able to fix, but we need to make sure that we're talking with them to make sure that they're fixing any error that could possibly be happening. And if you're having an issue, we always want to know anyways, just because maybe we can try to quickly fix it if it's a small error for the reviewer. A lot of times we have to go to them to help fix it. Okay, here's just some friendly reminders about thresholds. So we want to make sure, again, that you carefully review all the requirements of the exhibits. For Exhibit 100, we want the architect to certify to the Unit Information tab on Exhibit 111. There's a chart at the bottom that we want them to certify to. It's the summary of square footage. That's what we want the architect to certify to. That way you don't have to have them all listed out in your exhibit. It's making sure your Exhibit 111 then matches your Exhibit 100, so we could try to minimize as many errors from those as possible. Make sure your floor plans have all your individual sized units and they're labeled. They need to be labeled with the square footage. You need to make sure all of the requirements from any of the exhibits in the application are labeled on your architect plans so we can clearly identify what is what. Sometimes what we may think is a washer and dryer isn't technically a washer and dryer, but we don't know that if it's not labeled. For Exhibit 102, I just want to make sure everyone makes sure to use the most up-to-date form. Sometimes we get forms that are years old. We understand the form is dated 2021, but please use that updated form. In Exhibit 103, we want to make sure you provide evidence of the current ownership, appraisal if that is required, and that is required when there is interested parties in the development that is going to be selling land. That could be any type, where if you're selling property to the development that you own and you're part of the ownership, that is, you are an interested party and an appraisal is required. And make sure to include the attestation stating that there is no other agreements entered between the parties other than what has been presented to NYFA in the exhibit. On Exhibit 108 and 116, we want to make sure that those sources match your equity tab on the Exhibit 111. You don't have to list the numbers of the amounts of each source, but we want to make sure all the sources are included. So if you have TIF, if you have owner equity, a deferred developer fee, we want them all listed. We don't necessarily need the amounts because we do know that sometimes those amounts can change, but we would like to know what all the sources and they are listed on 108 and 116 and that they match the Exhibit 111. On the Exhibit 111, again, use whole numbers. I want to make sure everyone is aware that we have updated the replacement reserves in the application. So they are no longer 250. They start at 300 and for seniors and 350 for other developments. And I showed you the leverage tab on the Exhibit 111. In the other selection criteria, we have mixed income developments. Make sure when you're looking at mixed income and then development of market rate units, you're reading the descriptions because they're two different possibilities for points. Mixed income is when the development in the same bin will have mixed units. So you'll have your LIHTC units and then you'll have your moderate units intermixed within those. Your development of market rate units are the ones that are being developed outside of the LIHTC project, but they are being constructed in conjunction with the development that you're applying for. There are specific requirements to be eligible for those points, for that point. So make sure you're reading that as well in the exhibit because you have to show us that it is completed before you will get issued the 8609s. With the development of market rate units, please make sure to describe that development of those market rate units in the Exhibit 1. It's really important so then we know what the plan is, what you're thinking, what the proposal is for the development of those market rate units. Exhibit 205, we want to make sure that everyone understands the PHA referral commitment. We need a proof of delivery, whether that's by email, by showing us the tracking number and then showing that it was delivered. We want to make sure that it's proof of delivery. We don't need them to sign the form anymore. We just want to make sure that we know that it got delivered to the correct organization, the correct housing authority. In Exhibit 206, if you didn't apply last year, you may not know this, but we did or haven't familiarized yourself with the QAP. We do have a place where you will lose 3 points if you've requested an increase in tax credits. This would go across for 9%. Any of those, if you've requested a 9% increase in tax credits, you will be losing 3 points.
Within the last 12 months.
Yes, within the last 12 months. For Exhibit 208 for the NYFA LIHTC compliance training, those are just the certificates that show that you've attended the NYFA. And this can be either of the past 2 years. So it could have happened in 26 or 25. So just making sure you have those compliance certificates as well. Exhibit 208, I showed you how we would like the exhibit to show us that the individual has their HCCP certification. So just refer to the exhibit examples as we try to provide a good example of what we would like to see. And again, if you have any questions, make sure to attend one of the office hours or email us, Cassandra and I, and we will make sure to get you a response. Exhibit 209, the design standards, green standards, and amenities. Make sure, because we've tried to make sure you're not duplicating or having to put plans in multiple places, that your architect certification that you upload for Exhibit 209 must match the elections made in the application, and they must be labeled on Exhibit 100 in your architectural plans. This will also, we have a way for you to use some drop downs to let us know what exterior additions the architect will be certifying to in the application. So make sure that they're certifying to those and that they are also labeled on the Exhibit 100. For the amenities, we do have in the application and in the online application portal asterisks by the ones that need to be labeled. There are some that we don't need to be labeled, like if you're going to have a video security system, we don't need that labeled on the plans, but the architect still does need to certify that you will in fact have a video security system. Exhibit 210, the Section 811 project rental assistance. Denise will be able to go over this in a little bit as well, but you will use the fair market rents that they have the link for, and I think it's in their PowerPoint. If not, we'll make sure you get the link to that. And so you must use those fair market rents, but you must not exceed the LIHTC rent limit either. So it's whichever one is less. You'll have to use the fair market rent. If it's less than the LIHTC unit, if the LIHTC unit is less than the fair market rent, you will use the LIHTC rent limit.
And just know, if you choose Section 811, there is no actual exhibit to upload for Section 811 in the application, but
That is correct. And make sure on your Exhibit 111 to label which units will be the Section 811 units. And when you're doing those, you will want to put what you anticipate. Obviously, this is an estimate because you don't know what they can't pay more than 30% of their income in rent, but you want to estimate what their rent would be on the Exhibit 111, identify it as a Section 811 unit in the far right corner column, and then down below in other monthly income is where you would show your voucher income as for the development. So you can make, when we're underwriting it, we can make sure that you are cash flowing. For leverage and collaboration, complete the leverage tab on Exhibit 111 and upload all of the commitments into Exhibit 212. That's really important. You can always include a brief overview as a front page to all of your commitments to outline what they are. That's really important as well if you have like a loan or a grant that you've received from whatever, like a QCT grant. Sometimes they give you more money than what you're putting towards this project. It's kind of nice to know that how much exactly that you are committing to this project. The areas of high opportunity, I will need to show you that. So I will open that. I forgot about that one. I will share my screen here in just a second to show you the areas of high opportunity, as that one is that is different than the way you're used to doing it from the previous QAP. Exhibit 218 is the DHHS DBH referral commitment. This also requires proof of delivery, just like the PHA referral. So making sure that you include the proof of delivery is very important, or you won't be eligible for that point. I also want to make sure you're aware that if you are applying for Section 811, you are not eligible for this point. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that, and I will see, here we go. So this is the link to the areas of high opportunity. I'm going to show you how to navigate it a little bit, because as you can see, there's not multiple green, I don't know why this isn't, there we go, green diamonds in the Omaha, or well, Douglas, that's Douglas County or Lancaster County. What you will do is click it and you can see if it'll let me.
I did just post the link in the chat.
Thank you. You can come here. I don't know why it wants to work, but you'll see that there's little arrows down there. The census tract right there is 60, all those numbers in 6302. You will want to scroll through because this is one of 163 census tracts. So you will want to go through each arrow to make sure you get to the correct census tract, and it will let you know how many points for each of the 4 sections for your application. We look at this. This is what our points are based off. This has not changed since the QAP was finalized and posted on the website. This remains the same for the entire QAP cycle. But if you have questions about the areas of high opportunity, you can always attend one of the office hours and we can go over that as well. And I will let Denise present on section 811 and just let me know when you want me to move the screen forward.
Thanks, Pam. Okay, you can go to the next screen. So HUD Section 811 came out of the Frank Melville Act of 2010. It is different than it used to be historically. It used to be capital advanced and now it is not. Now it is project-based rental assistance and it's for households with extreme low income as well as people with disabilities. So they're all in one. Disabilities and income are the 2 qualifiers. This requires a state partnership with, we're partnering with Department of Health and Human Services and all of their branches that serve people with disabilities. And they provide the wraparound services so that it does not fall on managers. That has been a question that I've been asked. It does not fall on managers to provide those services. That is for the community-based services that are available. The funds provide the rental assistance, and NYFA administers the costs for the rent, not any development or capital funding or anything like that, just for the rental assistance is what the grant, the 811 grant, covers. Supportive services are arranged by DHHS. They have to be eligible for a wraparound service, but it is not mandatory that the individual accepts those services or continues on the services. It is voluntary that they receive those services. Next slide. So for the program requirements, one thing that we will be working on is when we know who's going to work with the program, there is the initial ARAC, and that is the agreement to enter into a contract. This isn't optional, but we've opted to potentially use it. And that is just a commitment of, yep, we are going to move forward with this property, just so that we can have something solidified to show HUD, yes, we're in the works, we're planning, things like that. And then once we're up and going, the timing is going to be this will be very important with our timing because once we sign that RAC, our days are limited to getting that first rental assistance voucher paid out. So the rental assistance contract is a 20-year contract between the owner and NYFA. Under the PRA agreement, it is a 30-year commitment to the program. That's a statutory requirement. As long as there is money available, it will keep rolling. It is required that the HUD model lease is used. That's non-negotiable from HUD's perspective. There can be other addendums and things, but it has to be the model lease that HUD provides. We will be utilizing, this is also mandatory, a tenant and voucher processing system through a place called TRAX, which is the Tenant Rental Assistance Certification System. And that will be used to process the vouchers, and then NYFA will be releasing all of the payments. We will keep projects below 12 units because we do not want to trigger Davis-Bacon with the PRA units. Inspire inspections are required at least every 3 years. And environmental reviews, it's a little different than the full-blown environmental review, but those are required for new and existing properties if not completed within the last 5 years, and no changes not needed. So what the program is, the relationships is the NYFA, we will work with DHHS for the referrals, and we are setting with them some standards for who are the referral agencies, who are those folks that can be making those referrals into the program, and making sure that they qualify income-wise as well as disability-wise. They'll be heavier on the disability side. And then obviously we'll be working with Ally Tech property owners and managers on the vouchering and the referrals coming in, then running of the wait list to give you the referrals to see who is eligible for your property and who might not be eligible and why. And then we'll also be working with our tracks provider. They'll be helping us. Be working with you like with running the EIV as well as the track system to get the vouchering over to HUD, verifying everything and making sure everything is up to date and correct so that we don't end up with any overpayments or underpayments, such as that. And income verifications as well as recertification process. We'll be working heavily with the tracks on that. And then they'll be working with the tracks property managers and owners as well. And then the referral agencies with the Ally Tech property owners and managers, as well as the tenant, will have kind of a tri relationship for completing the documentation for the application, completing any mediation that might be needed, any supports that might be needed to help it be a successful tenancy, things like that. They're kind of there to help the person live independently and continue living independently and successfully. So hopefully that's a good resource for the owners and managers. Next slide. So eligible income limits are 30% of area median income or lower. The great thing about this is if on the day they move in, they are at 30% of area AMI. Let's say in a year from now, they get into a waiver program or something that like a work program with SSI, which are great assets to use, and their income goes up, they can remain in the program. Even if their income goes above that 30% threshold, their voucher will just lower, and then they can stay in the program until their voucher is like basically zeroed out with utility allowance as well as the rents. So they can stay in the program. They don't have to move out just because their income went a little bit higher. We do ask that they recertify when there is a big difference in their income, just so that we can calculate the rent correctly and not end up with a HUD back payment. But as long as we can keep on top of that, they can stay there, which is great and not typical. Households with at least one individual has to meet the following. They have to be disabled as defined by HUD. It is a laundry list. It's huge. And they have to be eligible for wraparound services. But we can take care of that with DHHS. So you guys won't have to worry about verifying that disability. They have to be between the ages of 18 and 62. So they have to be 61 on the day they move in. Let's say that they move in on January 20 or on July 21st, and they turn 62 on July 23rd. They've signed the lease. They were 61 the day moved in. They can stay. So we just have to get them in while they are 61, so they can age in place. And they have to be eligible for community-based services through HHS. The referrals are coming from the Department of Health and Human Services. And through NYFA, we are establishing a referral process. So we will take care of that as well as the referrals for the units that are dedicated to 811. Next slide. The units in the properties, there has to be at least 5 units in the development. They have to be integrated throughout the property. 811 units are capped at 25% of total units, hence why there needs to be 5 or more. One thing, there isn't a minimum, however, make it worth your time because it's a little bit of work to set up the EIV and the tracks and things. So if you have a big project, don't ask for just 2. Ask for more. Kind of make it worth your time and our time. And that would be fantastic. 5% of all units have to be accessible for people with disabilities, and 2% of the units have to be accessible for people with hearing and visual disabilities. Properties with existing disability use restrictions are not eligible. And units with long-term project-based subsidies over 6 months in the prior 6 months are not eligible to apply. DHHS, we did a survey after the last application round, and we did a kind of a survey of what are the needs. And the feedback that we got back was that mostly one-bedroom units are needed. Mostly folks that are living by themselves are the ones that need the units. So that is where the need so keep that in mind with your application. We don't want to set it up where we can't fill the units. Like we don't need a lot of 4-bedroom units, and we don't want to be stuck yourself or ourselves stuck with an apartment that we can't fill. So we want to be smart with what is the need and matching that need for Nebraska. And then the other piece was properties with existing age restrictions. If you target like 55 and over, that's fine. However, for these project units, you have to be willing to take that 18 to 62. So all of these units, there is no age limit. Like we can't say, nope, only 55-year-olds and up can go here. You have to be willing to take 18 to 62-year-olds for that property. Okay, next slide. Income and rent calculations. This is what the Trax folks will be helping a lot out with. And they have had 0 findings, so that's amazing. I'm excited to use them, and their track record seems pretty darn good, and they've been doing it for quite a while. So the income is we have to calculate that before they move in. And there is a useful tool, the 4530.3, chapter 5. It gives a lot of details on that calculation. Again, they have systems in place that will help us out a lot with that. And then we also use the form 559 that will show like any differences in the calculations as time goes on, as well as it'll break it all out for the utility allowance as well as what the rent is. Some property management software has rent calculation modules that are available, and that is able to communicate through Trax. So we will be using the Trax system. So we'll need to be sure to set you up with something that can communicate with the Trax system. And then we also will be we're required to use EIV as a third-party verification tool for the income. We will compare that reported income to ensure accuracy. Again, it's not the only thing that we can do. We have to have other verifications. I know when I've used EIV in the past, it brought up some interesting conversations of why wasn't this reported and things, and oh, I forgot about that job. So we want to make sure that we are fully in compliance with everything that is reported. One thing to note is LIHTC is prohibited from using to verify income or program requirements, and you have to keep separate from the LIHTC qualification documents. Those have to be stored separately. Next slide. So accessibility, section 504 is required to ensure the accessibility. Reasonable accommodations must be reviewed and approved when needed. The reasonable accommodations, it's basically like if it wouldn't break the bank for you, if it wouldn't put you in an undue circumstance, they need to be approved. Like if someone asks for a handbar, add a handbar. Now, if they're asking you to put an elevator in your building, that might be way too big of an impact on your program. So that would not be a reasonable accommodation. And the offer has to be made to the tenant themselves. Well, would you like to pay for this? So there are some ways that we can work. And we would work with the referral agency and you and kind of trying to problem solve. If there are some tricky, sticky, reasonable accommodations that are made, we would work together on that. Vacancy and program rules. If an apartment becomes vacant, of course, we want to know right away so we can get that unit filled. So as soon as you know someone puts their notice in, let us know so we can get the referrals over to you so that you can start processing those applications and see which one would be eligible. But if it's like an unexpected vacancy, rent can be claimed up to 80% of the rent for up to 60 days. So we have 2 months. We'd love to avoid that. We'd love to give you 100% of the rent all the time. So as often as possible, let us know immediately so we can get the referrals over to you. And the unit remains with the program even when the tenant moves out. So when that tenant moves out, that doesn't mean you can move someone in from your wait list. It has to be from the Section 8 wait list. And we will be managing the Section 8 wait list in collaboration with Department of Health and Human Services so that we can keep those referrals up to date. Phone numbers change, things like that. We can make sure And if you give us a heads up, we can start working on that documentation early. So please keep us in the loop. Screening requirements. Owner screen the entire household, including the eligible household member, other adults living in the household, as well as living aides. The live-in aid is for suitability. We do not, if they do have a live-in aid, that is completely allowed and they could use a 2-bedroom if needed. If they do have a live-in aid, however, their income is not counted toward the household income. That live-in aid's income is separate. It's not counted toward the income, but you could definitely screen that live-in aid for the suitability for your program. Okay, next slide. A few myths about 811. HUD 811 PRA, Project Rental Assistance, is just like Section 8. No, tenant-based vouchers follow the tenant. These vouchers stay with the unit, so they're stuck to that unit. Number 2 is the units must be unoccupied. A fully occupied project can be under contract. Applicants from the 811 program will be housed in a contract upon turnover, so we can do that. Like, obviously, we're starting with new construction though, so they will just be unoccupied, we hope, when they move in. But if we need to move an apartment for whatever reason, we can also move it into a unit as long as it didn't have that sticky voucher for 6 months prior. The units are required to be accessible. Accessible units are not required, not 100% of them, since not everyone needs them. Owners should be allowed reasonable modifications, so when needed. Number 4, people with disabilities are difficult to house. Challenges can arise, absolutely, but the supports in place will hopefully help to ensure smooth transitions. 811 programs often result in long-term housing stability, and I can say I ran an 811 program previously, and we had very low turnover, and things went really, really great. And we did have the support services in place too, so it can be ran really great. And then number 5, tenants with disabilities need extensive on-site services from the property. Property staff do not provide these services. All the services come from the local service providers, not the owner or manager. So that takes that weight off of your shoulders. You have people to rely on. And next one. This is us. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. If we don't know the answer, we have technical assistants that we meet with regularly, and we can get the answer to you.
Thank you, Denise. I want to make sure everyone knows there are 3 different office hours Q&A sessions that NYFA will put on in conjunction with the Department of Economic Development. And there will be times that Denise and or Liz may be able to attend one of those sessions. If not, we will always take the questions back to them and let them make sure to get the response and get them back out to everyone that was on the call or who had that specific questions in regards to Section 811. The events for the Q&A or office hours are on the NYFA website on the calendar, so you can register there for them as well. And just make sure that we try to do them at different times of the day to try to get those who may not be able to do a certain time but can do another time. And with that, if you have any questions about the LIHTC program, you can contact myself, Cassandra and myself. And if you have questions about the Department of Economic Development, you can contact Michelle at DED. Michelle, did you want to give any updates about the home and HTF program to those on the call? You might need to unmute yourself.
I was trying to find my button.
There you go.
Yes, for anyone interested in the home dollars, there's a little over 2 million going to be available for this next round. There are no National Housing Trust funds available, so that's not an option. And if anybody's interested, give me a call. We need to get site reviews going, so they're in time for the application. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Were there any questions in the chat, Cassandra?
Who do we email the letter of intent to? The tax credit email. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's TXCR credit.multifamily@NYFA.org, I believe, but it is in the QAP on page. We should add that either the email to that website before we post the PowerPoints. We will post the PowerPoints on our website along with this video as well. And
It's
we will add
also,
that.
that email address is also in reviewer in the application when you first log in.
Yes.
That email address is there also.
It's
And then you
also,
can include Gemini on it.
yeah, and it's also on page 15 of the QAP for the 4% program. Was there any other questions? I will say sometimes if we get questions by email, we will take them to the office hours and respond to them there as well.
This
So,
is Troy Hart. I just had a
okay.
quick question. How many state tax credit dollars are available this round for the 4%?
So we have the tax credits follow the volume cap. So for the 4% with the state tax credits, we have 35 million in volume cap set aside for the state tax credit application cycle.
Dollar per dollar. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the state matches the federal, and so we that's how we do our state tax credits right now. And so they follow that, and then the tax credits follow the bond cap. So whatever required.
And then it's still one state credit per county. Is that correct?
Correct. That is
Okay.
correct. So right now that there's only one application per county can be awarded. If there's only 2 counties and we have volume cap, we will probably looking at the scores, but we do the state tax, and that's for the state tax credit only cycle. So we do it differently for the 4% only. For the state tax credit side, they go by score, then they get divvied up by county, and then if there's more than one in a county, we pull in efficient housing measures into that to get to who's going to get to the top score to be able to be eligible for that county set aside. So if there's 3 different counties that are applying, and there's applications in all of them, we do all the efficient housing measures, and that NYFA does performs like on the 9% rounds, and we will then take the highest scoring from each county.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I just want to make sure everyone understands that for the 4% only cycle, that one is strictly based on score. We do not do efficient housing measures, and they are not limited to 1 per county.
And there are separate applications in reviewer for if you're applying for the state tax credit round or not. So make sure you're completing the right application.
Yes. And make sure to get your letter of intents into NYFA before next Wednesday at 5 p.m. If you have any questions, you can make sure to just email Cassandra and I, and we will help you as we can. I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
You too.